When someone hurts you, the first instinct is to react, to explain, to defend, to prove your worth. This is where most people lose their power. Pain makes the mind noisy, and noise makes you predictable. Predictability is easy to control. The one who hurt you expects a certain response: tears, anger, long messages, questions without answers. He expects you to orbit around his actions. When you do that, even in pain, you give him the center position in your mind. Power is lost the moment your inner state depends on another person's behavior. Understand this clearly. Confusion is not chaos. Confusion is silence where noise was expected, stillness where reaction was assumed, strength where weakness was predicted. The man who hurt you already knows how to deal with emotions. He has seen anger before. He has seen sadness before. What he does not know how to deal with is discipline. Presence, a mind that does not chase explanation. The first way to confuse him is to stop explaining yourself. When you explain, you try to be understood. When you try to be understood by someone who chose not to understand you, you shrink yourself. Silence is not weakness. Silence is a mirror. It forces the other person to face themselves. Do not announce your withdrawal. Do not threaten distance. Simply remove access to your emotional energy. Speak only when necessary. Speak clearly, speak briefly, no emotional overflow. This unsettles the person who expected emotional dependency. The second way is to control your body before you control your words. Pain lives in the body before it becomes thought. Tight chest, shallow breath, restless hands. If you do not master the body will betray you. Slow your breathing, straighten your posture, walk with intention. A calm body sends a powerful signal to the mind: I am safe. I am grounded. When you move calmly after being hurt, you disrupt the story he told himself about you. He expected collapse. You chose stability. The third way is to stop seeking closure from the person who caused the wound. Closure does not come from answers. Closure comes from acceptance. The need for answers keeps you attached. Detachment is clarity. Ask yourself, what lesson is being revealed right now? Pain is information. It shows you where boundaries were weak, where self-respect was delayed, where intuition was ignored. When you learn the lesson, the pain loses its grip. The fourth way to confuse him is to grow quietly. No announcements, no revenge, no performance. Discipline does not seek validation. Improve your routine, strengthen your mind, sharpen your focus, build skills, train your body, elevate your standards. People expect transformation to be loud. True transformation is silent. When he sees you later and senses that you no longer need his recognition, confusion arises naturally, not because you tried to confuse him, but because you changed the dynamic. The fifth way is to become emotionally unpredictable by being emotionally stable. This sounds contradictory, but it is powerful. Emotional stability means you are not easily provoked. Unpredictability means your reactions are no longer automatic. He cannot push your buttons if you removed them. When someone tries to test you and finds no reaction, their control dissolves. Calm is uncomfortable for those who thrive on emotional leverage. The sixth way is to choose self-respect over being liked. Many people stay stuck because they want to be seen as kind, understanding, forgiving, even when they are being disrespected. Respect is not loud, it is firm. It knows when to step back. You do not need to prove your value to someone who chose to treat you carelessly. Your value is not negotiable. When you live this truth, your presence changes. People feel it without you saying a word. The seventh way is to stop revisiting the wound in your mind. Every time you replay the moment, you reopen the injury. Discipline your thoughts. When the memory arises, observe it without feeding it. Return to the present. Return to your breath. Return to your path. A disciplined mind is the ultimate form of freedom. Finally, understand this: the goal is not to confuse him. The goal is to reclaim yourself. Confusion is just a side effect of your growth. When you no longer chase, explain, or beg for clarity, you step into your center. Pain does not mean you are weak. Pain means you are human. What defines you is how you respond to it. Stand still, breathe deeply, move forward with intention. When you do not react the way they expect, when you rise instead of collapse, when you choose discipline over drama, you take back your power. When someone hurts you, the mind immediately searches for relief through reaction. Words rush forward, emotions demand expression, the heart wants to be seen, validated, understood. This impulse feels natural, but it is also the moment where power begins to slip away. Reaction places your inner state into someone else's hands. The one who hurt you becomes the reference point for your peace, and this dependence is felt instantly, even if unspoken. Silence is not the absence of strength. Silence is the containment of it. When you choose not to react, you interrupt a pattern. Most people operate on predictable emotional cycles. Hurt leads to confrontation. Confrontation leads to justification. Justification leads to exhaustion. Silence breaks this chain before it forms. It creates a space where the other person expected noise. In that space, power returns to you. Explaining yourself often comes from a desire to be understood, but understanding cannot be forced. When someone has already crossed a boundary, your explanation does not elevate you, it exposes you. Each word you offer becomes material for interpretation, defense, or dismissal. Silence removes this material. It does not argue, it does not beg, it does not persuade, it simply stands. Withdrawing emotional energy does not mean becoming cold or cruel. It means refusing to leak your inner life where it is no longer respected. Emotional energy is valuable. It fuels connection, creativity, and growth. When it is wasted on someone who has already shown carelessness, it drains you while nourishing nothing. Silence conserves this energy. It redirects it inward. There is discomfort in silence, especially at first. The mind rebels. It tells you that you are losing control, that you should say something, that staying quiet means losing the narrative. This is an illusion. True control is not found in dominating the conversation, but in mastering the impulse to speak. The one who can pause controls the rhythm. The one who reacts follows it. Silence also acts as a mirror. When you stop explaining, the other person is left alone with their own actions. There is no emotional fog to hide behind, no argument to distract from responsibility. Some will feel uneasy, others will feel exposed. This reaction is not something you create intentionally. It arises naturally when you no longer participate in emotional bargaining. Many people confuse silence with weakness because they associate strength with loudness. In reality, loudness often masks insecurity. The need to convince, to clarify repeatedly, to justify pain is a sign that the center has been lost. Silence indicates that the center is intact. It shows that your sense of self does not require external confirmation. Withdrawing emotional energy is also an act of boundary setting. Instead of saying, "You hurt me, and here is why," you demonstrate, "Access to my inner world has changed." Boundaries spoken are often challenged. Boundaries lived are felt immediately. Silence is a lived boundary. This does not mean suppressing emotion. Suppression pushes pain deeper and hardens it. Silence means choosing where emotion is processed. Instead of pouring it into the person who caused it, you process it privately through reflection, movement, breath, and time. This allows pain to transform into understanding instead of resentment. When you stop reacting, you reclaim time. Hours once spent replaying conversations, crafting messages, and imagining responses are freed. That time can be used to strengthen yourself. The mind becomes clearer when it is no longer occupied with external validation. Clarity brings calm, and calm brings perspective. Perspective reveals an important truth. Not every hurt deserves a response. Some actions are answers in themselves. Silence acknowledges this reality. It says without words that you have recognized what happened and adjusted accordingly. This is not avoidance. It is discernment. The discipline of silence strengthens inner authority. Each time you resist the urge to react, you prove to yourself that you are not ruled by impulse. This builds trust within. You begin to rely on your own steadiness rather than external reassurance. Over time, this steadiness becomes visible. Your presence changes. Your words, when you choose to use them, carry more weight. Withdrawing emotional energy also dissolves manipulation. Manipulation feeds on reaction. Guilt, anger, confusion, and over-explanation are tools that only work when you engage emotionally. Silence removes the fuel. Without fuel, manipulation collapses. This practice requires patience. The desire to be heard can be strong, especially when pain is fresh. Silence does not erase the pain instantly. It creates the conditions for healing. Healing needs space, and silence provides it. As you remain silent, you may notice something shift. The urgency fades. The mind settles. What once felt unbearable becomes manageable. You begin to see that your worth was never dependent on being understood by the person who hurt you. Silence is not about punishment. It is about protection. It protects your dignity, your energy, and your future self. It keeps you from saying things you may regret, and from revealing parts of yourself to those who have not earned them. In choosing silence over reaction, you step out of emotional chaos and into self-command. You stop chasing explanations and start embodying boundaries. You no longer hand over your power through words spoken in pain. You stand firm, grounded, and contained, allowing your actions, not your emotions, to define the next chapter. Pain does not begin in the mind. It begins in the body. Before a thought forms, the body tightens. The breath becomes shallow, the shoulders rise, the jaw locks. If the body is not brought back under control, the mind follows its tension and creates stories that deepen the wound. Mastery always starts with what is closest. The body is closest. When someone hurts you, the body reacts automatically. This reaction is ancient. It is designed for survival, not wisdom. The heart rate increases, muscles prepare for defense, and awareness narrows. In this state, words become sharp, actions become impulsive, and regret often follows. Trying to calm the mind while the body remains agitated is like trying to still water while shaking the container. Control of the body is not suppression, it is regulation. The first step is the breath. Slow, deliberate breathing sends a signal to the nervous system that there is no immediate danger. The mind listens to the breath more than it listens to logic. Lengthening the exhale softens internal pressure. Each breath becomes an anchor, pulling you back from emotional extremes. Posture plays a silent but powerful role. When the spine collapses, the mind follows. Slouched posture reinforces defeat and vulnerability. An upright spine, relaxed shoulders, and steady gaze communicate stability, not just to others, but to yourself. The body becomes a reminder that you are still standing, regardless of what happened. Movement releases stored emotion. Pain that is not expressed through the body often turns into mental loops. Walking with awareness, stretching, or engaging in disciplined physical practice allows emotion to move through instead of stagnate. Stillness without awareness becomes numbness. Movement with awareness becomes clarity. The body holds memory. A certain tone of voice, a familiar place, a repeated pattern can trigger physical responses long after the event has passed. Recognizing this prevents confusion. When the chest tightens or the stomach knots, it does not always mean danger is present now. It means the body remembers. Awareness of this distinction creates space between sensation and reaction. Mastery means observing the body without being overwhelmed by it. Sensation is information, not command. Tightness can be noticed without being obeyed. Heat can be felt without being expressed through anger. This observation builds internal distance. In that distance, choice appears. When the body is calm, words change. They become fewer, clearer, and more intentional. You stop explaining emotionally and start responding deliberately. This shift alters dynamics immediately. People feel when they can no longer provoke a reaction. Calm presence disrupts emotional patterns more effectively than confrontation. Training the body builds resilience. Regular physical discipline teaches you to remain steady under pressure, holding a posture, completing a challenging movement, or maintaining balance while fatigued strengthens more than muscle. It trains the nervous system to stay composed when discomfort arises. This skill transfers directly into emotional situations. A body accustomed to discipline does not panic easily. It understands effort, discomfort, and recovery. Emotional pain becomes another sensation to be managed, not an emergency to be solved. This reframing changes everything. Instead of asking how to stop the pain, you learn how to carry it without being crushed. Control of the body also restores presence. Presence brings attention back to what is real now, not what happened before or what might happen later. The mind often escapes into past conversations or imagined futures. The body exists only in the present, feeling the feet on the ground, the air entering the lungs. The weight of the body in space brings you back to what can be handled. When you stand calmly after being hurt, you rewrite the narrative internally. The story shifts from being a victim of circumstance to being a participant in growth. This is not denial of pain. It is refusal to let pain dictate identity. Others respond differently to someone who is embodied. Calm posture and measured movement signal self-respect. Even without words, boundaries are felt. People sense when emotional access has changed. This often creates uncertainty in those who relied on emotional volatility to maintain influence. The body also teaches patience. Healing cannot be rushed, just as physical recovery cannot be forced. Rest, nourishment, and time are required. Listening to the body prevents burnout and emotional exhaustion. Ignoring it leads to collapse. As bodily awareness deepens, reactions slow. The space between stimulus and response widens. In that space lies freedom. Freedom is not the absence of pain, but the ability to choose how to meet it. Through consistent attention to breathe, posture, and movement, the body becomes an ally instead of an enemy. It no longer drags the mind into chaos. It supports clarity, steadiness, and dignity. When the body is mastered, the mind naturally follows. Calm becomes familiar. Presence becomes stable. You no longer need to force composure. It arises from within, grounded, quiet, and unshaken. The desire for closure often feels urgent after being hurt. The mind searches for answers, explanations, and final conversations that will somehow settle the pain. This search appears reasonable, but it quietly ties your peace to the person who caused the wound. As long as you believe closure must come from them, your healing remains outside your control. Closure is commonly misunderstood as information. You think that if you just understand why it happened, the pain will dissolve. In reality, answers rarely satisfy. They raise more questions, create new doubts, or reopen the wound. The mind is never finished analyzing. Waiting for someone else to complete your understanding keeps you emotionally suspended. Detachment begins with recognizing that not every experience is meant to be explained. Some actions reveal character without commentary. When someone hurts you, the behavior itself is the message. Seeking additional clarification can dilute this message and weaken your ability to respond with clarity. Attachment thrives on unfinished conversations. The urge to send one more message, to ask one more question, to express one more feeling keeps the connection alive. This attachment is not love or fairness, it is habit. Breaking a habit requires awareness, not confrontation. Detachment does not mean indifference. It means releasing the need to control outcomes. You allow events to exist as they are, without insisting they be different. This acceptance is not passive. It is precise. It cuts through illusion and reveals what can be changed and what cannot. When you stop seeking closure from the source of pain, attention turns inward. You begin to ask different questions. What did this situation reveal about my boundaries? Where did I ignore discomfort? What patterns am I repeating? These questions lead to insight instead of dependency. Clarity grows in silence. When the mind is no longer occupied with imagined dialogues, it settles. In this settled state, understanding emerges naturally. You see the situation more accurately without emotional distortion. Time combined with distance sharpens perception. Detachment creates emotional space. In this space, feelings can be observed without being acted upon. Anger can arise and pass. Sadness can be felt without becoming identity. This observation weakens the grip of emotion. You realize that emotions move when they are not resisted or fed. The need for closure is often rooted in self-doubt. You want confirmation that your pain was justified. Detachment restores self-trust. You accept that your experience is valid without external approval. This validation from within is stabilizing. When you no longer chase resolution, power dynamics shift. You are no longer waiting. Waiting places you below. Detachment lifts you back to center. From this position, decisions are made calmly, not reactively. Letting go of closure also frees memory. Replaying events loses intensity when there is no longer a mission to solve them. The mind stops circling and begins to move forward. Forward movement does not require full understanding, only willingness. Detachment reveals impermanence. People, feelings, and situations change. Clinging to a version of the past creates suffering. Accepting change reduces friction. You begin to align with reality instead of resisting it. This clarity influences behavior. Communication becomes simpler. Boundaries become firmer. You no longer over-explain or justify. Your actions align with your values rather than your emotions. Detachment also protects dignity. You do not expose vulnerability to those who mishandled it. You choose carefully where to place trust. This selectivity is not bitterness, it is discernment. As attachment dissolves, space opens for growth. Energy once spent on rumination becomes available for creation. Focus sharpens, motivation returns, life expands beyond the wound. Clarity is not dramatic. It arrives quietly, often unnoticed at first. One day you realize you are no longer waiting for a message, an apology, or an explanation. The absence of waiting feels light. Through detachment, you reclaim authorship of your inner world. You are no longer reacting to someone else's actions. You are responding to your own understanding. Letting go of closure is not giving up. It is choosing peace over obsession, truth over illusion, and forward movement over stagnation. Growth that seeks attention is fragile. It depends on being seen, praised, and acknowledged. When recognition does not come, motivation collapses. Quiet growth is different. It is rooted in discipline, not reaction. After being hurt, there is a strong temptation to prove something, to show how well you are doing, to make the other person regret their actions. This urge still places them at the center of your effort. True growth removes them from the equation entirely. Quiet growth begins with routine, not dramatic change, not sudden reinvention, but small, repeated actions done without announcement. Waking at a consistent time. Moving the body with intention, training the mind through focus and restraint. These actions rebuild structure after emotional disruption. Structure stabilizes the inner world when emotions fluctuate. Discipline is the foundation of silent improvement. Discipline does not argue with mood. It does not wait for inspiration. It acts because action is required. When you commit to discipline, you stop negotiating with pain. You acknowledge it and continue forward. This consistency builds self-respect, which is stronger than confidence because it is earned. Growing quietly also means resisting the urge to perform healing. Sharing every step of recovery can slow it down. When progress becomes a message, it loses depth. Privacy allows transformation to be honest. Mistakes can happen without shame. Weakness can be faced without defense. As discipline deepens, standards rise. You begin to notice what drains you and what strengthens you. You become selective with time, energy, and relationships. This selectivity is not arrogance, it is awareness. You understand that not everything deserves access to you. Quiet growth changes your presence. You speak less, but with more clarity. You listen more, but tolerate less nonsense. Your responses become measured. Emotional extremes soften. People sense the shift without being able to name it. This unspoken change is unsettling to those who expected the old version of you. Self-respect is built through alignment. When actions match values, inner conflict reduces. You no longer say yes to avoid discomfort or stay silent to avoid confrontation. You choose what aligns with your principles, even when it is inconvenient. This alignment creates inner stability. Growth without announcement prevents comparison. When no one is watching, you move at your own pace. You are not tempted to measure progress against others. The journey becomes personal, not performative. This keeps motivation pure. Discipline also teaches patience. Real change unfolds slowly. The mind often wants immediate results as proof of progress. Quiet growth accepts delay. It understands that strength built over time is more resilient than quick improvement. As you strengthen yourself, the desire to be understood by those who hurt you fades. You no longer seek validation from them because validation is generated internally. This shift removes emotional leverage from others. Quiet growth disrupts old dynamics naturally. Without confrontation, without explanation, you become different. When interaction happens, it feels unfamiliar. Boundaries are felt, not announced. Expectations change. This form of growth is sustainable. It does not rely on external motivation. It continues even when no one notices. This makes it powerful. Power that does not seek attention is difficult to manipulate. Through disciplined routines, strengthened values, and increased awareness, you rebuild identity on solid ground. The wound becomes a reference point, not a definition. As you grow quietly, life expands beyond the event that once dominated your thoughts. New interests develop, focus sharpens, energy returns to what truly matters. Quiet growth is not an escape from pain. It is a method of transformation. Pain becomes fuel rather than obstruction. It is refined through discipline into clarity, strength, and self-command. Without announcing your progress, without proving anything, you evolve. The absence of noise allows depth. The absence of performance allows truth. In choosing silent discipline over loud reaction, you step fully into self-respect, and in doing so, the version of you that emerges no longer needs to be understood to be powerful.